In 2007, Nokia owned half the mobile phone market on Earth. Half. They had more engineers, more patents, and more cash than almost any tech company alive. 6 years later, they sold their entire phone business for pocket change. So what happened? It wasn't the iPhone that killed Nokia, not really. It was something much quieter, a decision made in a boardroom that most people have never heard about.
In the early 2000s, one company owned the mobile landscape. At their peak, they commanded over 40% of the global handset market, meaning nearly half of the mobile phones on Earth were theirs. Devices like the Nokia 3310 defined the era, moving hundreds of millions of units to a global audience. For an entire generation, these handsets were the default tools for connection. But this technology empire began in a surprisingly low-tax setting. In 1865, mining engineer Frederick Idestam established a single ground-wood pulp mill on a Finnish river. Over the next century, Nokia evolved through several industrial shifts, manufacturing rubber boots, producing car tires, and military equipment, including this M61 gas mask for the Finnish Defense Forces. Nokia's identity was built on a century of industrial transitions. They succeeded by abandoning old business models whenever a new market emerged, a trait that would eventually carry them into the mobile age. That focus sharpened in 1992. CEO Jorma Ollila pivoted the entire conglomerate to concentrate solely on telecommunications and mobile infrastructure. During the 1990s, consumers valued physical engineering above all else. Success depended on building devices that could survive heavy impacts and stay powered for several days on a single charge. Nokia dominated this era through unmatched manufacturing scale. They built a global distribution network that made them the primary brand in both emerging markets like India and developed economies in Europe. By 1998, they were the leading handset manufacturer in the world. They had become a highly efficient machine for producing high-quality hardware. In 2007, Apple launched the iPhone. In an instant, the industry's success factors moved from hardware durability to software and digital ecosystems. This data shows the shift. While the value of traditional hardware flattened, app-driven digital ecosystems began a period of exponential growth. Consumers were no longer buying a phone, they were buying a gateway to a platform. Nokia's leadership dismissed the threat. They judged the iPhone by its poor battery life and fragile glass, failing to see that it was a handheld computer rather than just a weak telephone. Nokia relied on their aging Symbian operating system. Because it was built for physical buttons and directional pads, it was notoriously difficult for third-party developers to adapt their apps for a modern touchscreen interface. While Apple and Google were building app stores, Nokia was still optimizing for rugged casings. They stayed focused on the hardware game while the rest of the world moved on to software. By 2011, the crisis reached a breaking point. New CEO Stephen Elop sent his burning platform memo to the staff, admitting that their software was obsolete and their market position was collapsing. The company faced a choice: adopt the open Android platform like their rival Samsung, or seek out an exclusive software partner to stand out from the crowd. They chose exclusivity. Elop signed a deal with Microsoft, locking Nokia's new Lumia handsets into the Windows Phone ecosystem. The hardware was sleek, but the platform suffered a critical lack of applications. Because it had so few users, developers ignored Windows Phone for iOS and Android. Without the mainstream apps consumers demanded, these Nokia phones could not compete. The result was a total collapse. In just 6 years, Nokia's global market share plummeted from 40% to less than 3%. By 2014, the handset era was over. Nokia sold its entire mobile division to Microsoft for over $7 billion to stabilize its finances. To most consumers, the brand seemed dead. But Nokia used that capital to rebuild the company around network infrastructure and telecommunications equipment. They acquired their rival Alcatel-Lucent, shifting their engineering talent away from consumer gadgets and into the back-end technology that powers global networks. Nokia is now a global leader in 5G and the Internet of Things. They provide the critical routing hardware and network solutions that connect modern enterprises and mobile carriers. Nokia survived by liquidating the consumer business. walking away from the very products that had defined their global brand for 2 decades. The core takeaway is clear. Past success can blind a company to a changing reality. No brand is too established to fail if it ignores a shift in the industry's underlying rules. The hardware expertise that made Nokia famous also created internal silos. Management struggled to resolve rivalries between divisions, which delayed their response to touch-optimized software and allowed nimbler competitors to take the lead. Nokia's story is a reminder that in a changing world, the only thing more dangerous than a failure is the complacency that follows absolute success.
Nokia didn't die because they were stupid. They died because they were comfortable. And that's the part that should worry you. Because the companies we think are untouchable right now, some of them are making the exact same mistake. If this story made you think, subscribe. We dig into stories like this every day.